right, here we go. I give you Summer 2025.
Where am I?
Welp, it's 2025, and Valve finally dropped the first holiday-sized update of the year. A few weeks ago. Yeah, sorry I'm late on this. I wanted the stuff to marinate a bit. I wanted to properly experience the new maps and other content to be able to give a fair criticism on it. And Valve delivered something, I'll say that much. I'm going to be taking an in-depth look into the content and grading everything on a scale from 1 to 10, 5 being the middle. Oh, and before we get into it, I'll preface this by saying, opinions ahead. If you can't handle that, please click off. So, let's get into it. First and foremost, let's look at the hats. We got 23 new hats to gamble for this update. Woo! Yeah! Gambling! Yeah! Woo! 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 It's kind of a mixed bag. A couple of good things mixed in with a lot of stinkers. Starting with the Scout. He got the Case of the Blues, the Headliner, and the Man of the Hour. This item set is an obvious reference to Frank Sinatra. The hat itself is okay, with the hair underneath falling a bit short. It kinda looks like plastic. Along with the suit, it looks like plastic as well. It's not very well modeled. The guitar is the best looking out of the set, although I find it kind of hard to believe Scout would bring this to a battlefield. All in all, the set itself feels pretty lackluster and is kinda ugly, and aside from maybe the hat, it doesn't mix well with anything else, at least as far as I can tell. 3 out of 10. The soldier got one cosmetic in this update, the jar head. This is a simple set of glasses, a cigarette, and hair for the soldier. I would say it fits, although the hair ruins it for me. The hair is the worst part of this cosmetic, mainly because it looks like somebody pooped on his head. It looks like a pile of shit. The third style is the best, as it doesn't have the hair, but the other 2 styles do. Also, the second style commits a grave sin, and that is showing the soldier's unobscured eyes. The majority of earlier cosmetics do not show his eyes, opting to cover them or at the very least mostly obscure them. The reason for this is to maintain his original design, which obscures his eyes. For this reason, it puts it lower for me. 4 out of 10. Would be better if the third style was the original and only cosmetic. Now on to Pyro, who got a scuba diver set, the Abyss Diver, Frogman's Fittings, and the Oxygen Provider. Oh boy, I don't like this set very much. It doesn't make much sense to me that the guy who burns people to death would now be a scuba diver. The mask also does not really look like the Pyro. It looks like a different character. There's worse ones we have in game already, but those don't make this one look any better. It's just meh. The Frogman's Fittings, it's just a wetsuit for Pyro. I know a very specific demographic that's excited about these. Anywho, moving on. The Oxygen Provider just completes the set. Doesn't really go super well with anything else, it just exists. Other than the flippers, it doesn't stick out much. 2 out of 10, not as poorly modeled as the other cosmetics, but it doesn't make much sense for Pyro. The Demo Man. Oh my god, Valve. I thought we were past this. Another bomb beanie? Really? This is like the 5th one. It's a really shit one too. I don't even have anything constructive to say about this. It's just tacky garbage that looks like it belongs in a 2021 winter case. 0 out of 10, cast that shit into the void, my god. The Heavy got a lot of love this update. He got 2 entire sets. First, we'll talk about the Disco Elysium set. Heavy got a set referencing the main character from Disco Elysium, the Mr. Rostov, Esprit de Corpse, and Hardcore Pantalon. The hair is a bit much for a character that's usually bald. It's not as poorly modeled as the Scout hair, although it doesn't look like hair, more so a wig. The Esprit de Corps is overtly cartoony for a TF2 cosmetic. The tie is massive, and you can use the cosmetic to make a pretty funny loadout. The pants are a bit baggy, otherwise mostly unnoticeable. The entire set doesn't really seem like something the Heavy would wear. It's just Harry from Disco Elysium in TF2, another set that's just a different character. I rated it a 2 out of 10. It's really nothing more than a reference and occasionally a funny loadout. Heavy's second set is a Monk set, the Fat Friar and the Hunk of Monk. This is by far the worst set the Heavy got. It sticks out like a sore thumb. The body cosmetic just, it is not something that the heavy weapons guy would pick out. The hair is equally as bad. being a circular dome on top of his head, showing a giant spot of baldness. It's modeled pretty poorly as well. I don't have much else to say, it's just bad all around, 1 out of 10. The Engineer. The Engineer got a medieval type set, the Cattleman's Kettle, and Sir builds a lot. Helmet-like items have the most potential to fit the Engineer. He uses a hard hat by default, although in execution it has a lot of potential for failure. This is emblematic of that. The helmet is medieval themed, which I would say does not fit the character of an engineer. It gives him facial hair, which makes him look like a different character. The body cosmetic is overtly cartoony and thick. It changes too much about the engineer at a base level, and adds too much unnecessary detail that doesn't look good at all. This is a highly educated Texan man, not a medieval peasant. 1 out of 10, it's a pretty bad set. Medic got a detective set, the Clinical Investigator and the Shadow of Doubt. The jacket is a decent body cosmetic for the medic. It reminds me of the Medical Mystery. The only gripe I have is that the arms and neck area are a bit odd. They had to model over the lab coat on his arms and chest, so you have giant baggy parts connecting those areas. It looks kinda off, and it's a bit poorly modeled. The hat itself, though, is inoffensive. It's a bit bland because the medic has a few similar items to it already, but I wouldn't say it's bad. The jacket is a tiny bit underbaked, 6 out of 10. Sniper got an interesting set this update. He got the blinded bonnet and the shady Shelby. Wow, this does not look like the Sniper. So first off, the hat itself is pretty large on his head. It looks like the baker's boy for Scout, but team colored and on Sniper. The mustache does not look like facial hair, it looks like Play-Doh. The body cosmetic is worse. It adds a ton of bulk to the player model. The collar is almost like a brick. The modeling work truly kills the execution. I do not think a sniper would wear this to a battlefield, but I digress. It doesn't fit the mercenary it's on, and it's just poorly made. 2 out of 10. The spy got an entire set and a bonus cosmetic. First, let's talk about the set. Le Morne Uniforme and Le Sapeur. This is a French police officer set. I just have to ask why. The modeling itself isn't terrible, it's made well enough, although it still sticks out. And the reason it sticks out is it makes the spy very bulky. The spy is built to be a very slender looking man. When you bulk him up like this, it kind of messes with his silhouette. He's not unidentifiable, but it looks a bit off. I find it hard to believe he would be wearing a French police officer uniform. This does not look like the spy, it looks like a different character. Another cosmetic that's just falling into the syndrome of making these characters a different one. 1 out of 10. I'm not the biggest fan of this cosmetic. Alright, next we have the spy ties. These are a lot more fitting of the spy, at least I would say so, if it wasn't adding so much visual noise into one small spot. It makes the spy look a bit off. Every style adds just way too much detail to the player model, but it's not out of character for the spy to be wearing a tie. He is a fancy man, he already wears a tie to the battlefield, so I don't see these being too out of the question for him to wear, although I stand by that these are too detailed for TF2. 5 out of 10. Inoffensive, but also a bit too eye-catching. Now on to the all-class item. It's just the Ellis cap, but able to be put backwards. This is the elite grade, and I don't know why. 2 out of 10. It's pretty disappointing, mainly because we already have things that look almost exactly like this. Well, that was a very mixed bag of mostly poorly made and unfitting cosmetics. Now on to the gaudier stuff, unusuals. I will preface this section by saying that I am not the biggest fan of unusuals. I think unusuals are very ugly, and visually do not mesh well with the game. I will say I'm glad Valve is adding less of them, this update adding 14 instead of the usual amount. These I don't think we need any more of, but I'll grade them anyway. Understand that my grading is on how unique and creative they are, not how well they fit in with the game, as I think none of them belong. First off is Drunkard. I can see this getting pretty valuable on demo cosmetics. Simple effect, not super gaudy in your face, but also a bit flashy. I'm surprised it took us this long to get something like this in. 6 out of 10. Now we have Blades of Betrayal and Death's Daggers. It's very flashy, team-colored unusual, that I think is pretty ugly. It falls into the trap of looking like other effects, but, you know, with an extra little bit added on. I'm sorry, it's just ugly. 2 out of 10. Now we have Fully Charged and Overcharged. It's the overcharge effect on the mercenary's head. It's a normal alright effect, points for making it unique. It reminds me of older effects, but, you know, I don't think this would have been added a long time ago. My only hope is it doesn't cause confusion with people, but time will tell. Otherwise, I think it looks perfectly fine. 6 out of 10. Now on to Piercing Headache. This is probably the laziest unusual I've ever seen. It will absolutely be forgotten after this update. This unusual is just consistently terrible. It's just a bullet, like, circling through the mercenary's head. It's pretty ugly. 1 out of 10. And last but not least, for the hat effects, Decimating Wind. Ah, amazing! It's a reference to Sharknado, that movie that everyone likes. Casted into the void, tacky garbage, 1 out of 10. And that's it for hat unusuals. Now on to unusual taunts. Hi, hello there. Editing Non-Moth here. Just quickly gonna chime in and say something. So this section's gonna be a little fucky with the editing. And the main reason is I could not get SFM to render these animations correctly, at least for the unusual taunts. So I'm gonna steal some footage from Shonik's video of where he showed off all the 2025 unusual effects. So yeah, just letting you know that's what happened here. First off, we got Sea Mine. It's just team-colored sea mines coming up from the ground. It's just tacky summer garbage. 1 out of 10. Next we have Iconic Outline and Subtle Silhouette. Call me crazy, but I kinda like Subtle Silhouette. It's as it says, subtle. At least as much as an unusual can be. It's at least not color vomit. The Iconic Outline is just the team-colored version of it, which is a decent little effect. I give it overall a 7 out of 10. Pretty nice. Next is Ocean Reef. It's just a tacky garbage effect of seaweed. I don't see how anyone really likes this. It seems like another cheap unusual to just rot away on Marketplace. 1 out of 10, pretty garbage. Next we have Lost Signal. This one is a pseudo creepypasta type effect. It's interesting, but I think it adds way too much weird visual noise. It sticks out pretty harshly. Just not something I think should be in the game at all. 1 out of 10. Summer Wave. I swear we have multiple of these kind of effects already. It's bland and kind of forgettable. It's just the sun over a puddle of water. Pretty uncreative, but it's not color vomit, unlike other effects. 3 out of 10. Last but not least, we have Shark Attack. It's 2 shark fin PNGs hovering around the mercenaries. This is another gimmicky garbage effect. 2 out of 10. And that's it for all the unusuals we got this update. Wow, we got a lot of really bad ones. But anyway, alright, on to taunts. We got 4 new taunts this update, with one of them being kind of controversial. First off, we got the Bear Hug. We have a taunt that lets Heavy express his love for his teammates. Why is he doing this? This is very out of character for the Heavy. The main emotions the guy shows are ones of glee from brutally mowing people down with his gun.
Oh, run! Run! I'm coming for you!
And the occasional thank you to medic or engineer for assisting in his murder spree. Otherwise, he doesn't really show much love toward his team or anyone else. 1 out of 10. Now we have the Texan Trick Shot. Oh boy, this is the controversial one. It's a paid taunt kill, the first of its kind. I saw some people calling it pay to win, which no, not really at all. It's one of the slowest taunt kills in the game. Uncle Dane showed a video of him using it, and it was very hard to get a kill with it. It's worse than any of the weapon taunt kills. It's a 5 out of 10, it's inoffensive, but my main issue with it is it opens the floodgates for more of these type of effects, and I'm kind of concerned for the future. Anywho, moving on. Here we have the final score. This one is alright. It's at least trying to be a taunt and insulting whoever you killed. I feel like they could have done something simpler. There are many other taunts that convey insulting people in far simpler and enraging ways. For instance, the soldier putting an L up to his forehead, calling you a fucking loser for dying, which I think is probably one of the better taunts in the game. But at least this taunt fits the definition of a taunt. I give it a 4 out of 10. And last we have the Flying Colors. First off, it's over the top animated. TF2 traditionally has very simple animation, not stuff you'd see in Overwatch or Fortnite. I don't think the idea of planting a flag is a bad idea, and it's the execution that leaves something to be desired. 3 out of 10. And that's all the taunts. And now we're on to the very last part of the update, the maps. The major gameplay content. This update, we got 10 of them. That's a ton of content. It's so much, it made the matchmaker crap out for a couple of days. I swear, if they keep adding maps like this game is going to become unplayable. But anyway, let's actually get into the content. Alright, first up we have Oh boy, I have a lot to say about this one. We teleported to Subnautica in this update. Visually, this map is extremely bright and in your face. It's not very subtle about its aquatic nature. TF2 maps tend to have less saturation and less focus on the backgrounds themselves. To be noticed, not introduced. It's definitely the brightest map this entire update. Now, on to gameplay. The gameplay itself ranges from alright to pretty bad. The first point is extremely vertical for a payload map, with a lot of twisting, winding hallways leading to Blue's spawn. Blue is on the top of the facility where they have to push the cart deeper into the facility to kill a shark with a torpedo. For some reason. Why didn't they just fire this at the shark on the outside? Why are they blowing up a shark? I'm thinking too much for the summer gimmick map. Anywho, there is an elevator just below the spawn area where you can find the cart. This section leads the player down into the main gimmick of this map, the fully submerged water sections. These sections are quite an interesting gameplay shakeup from the norm. The majority of water sections in TF2 are reserved for flanks or side areas away from the main objective, aside from a few maps. This is pretty standard for maps that feature water, although in this map you have to push the cart through these submerged sections. And because you drown pretty quick, this map made it so you cannot drown in the water. You also get a little speed boost while swimming. And while the gimmick is interesting, these sections tend to play kinda poorly. Do you like playing Pyro, Soldier, Demo Man? Well, too bad. These classes play absolutely terribly in the water. Players in the water can dodge incoming projectiles a lot easier than they can on land. This makes landing shots very difficult, especially for projectile weapons. And because everybody is elevated above ground level, soldiers can't take advantage of splash damage. Soldiers and demos are pretty much required to hit air shots while swimming. Demo Man, who is all projectiles, has to arc his grenades to account for everybody's increased mobility. Same with his sticky bombs, which have to be spammed at an arc underwater. Stickies and grenades also fly a lot slower in the water, so good luck hitting anything. As for Pyro, flames and water don't quite mix, so Pyro is stuck to his shotgun and his melee, which luckily he has a melee perfect for the job. It's nice to see an area where the Neon Annihilator isn't completely useless, although only using your melee in an open area is a surefire way to get completely annihilated. Any class running bullets has an immediate advantage in the water. Engineer with his auto-locking sentry can be pretty strong. This map allows you to build in these water sections, so what engineers tend to do is spam sentries at the bottom. Thankfully these are stationary targets, but they can be pretty hard to spot at times. You know what isn't a stationary target? The Heavy. Heavy is the strongest class in the water. Due to the speed boost, his gun having more range than a shotgun, and not requiring sniper-like aim makes him very powerful in the water. It can be quite oppressive and hard to survive when there are multiple heavies in the water. Because of this change in class dynamics in the water, the first point is either taken within 30 seconds, or is completely shut down by red. Moving toward the second point, Blue has to push directly up from the first water section using a platform, which can either be a smooth ride or a Sisyphean task. This all depends on how your team is playing, and how many engineers set up on the second point. The platform is spammed on super easily, so Blue has to clear the entire area to be able to cap. The problem with this is, Blue only has a single area to push from, to the side of the point. They can only really push from this tight corridor because the rest of the area is super spammable by red. The only other area is this upstairs section, but it's easily covered by red sentries and snipers. The second point can be quite hard to cap for these reasons. If Blue manages to cap second, then they get the joy to take on the third point. The third point is where the second and final water section is. This section is less involved than the first water section, where it uses a platform to go underneath this wall and up onto a track. This wouldn't be so bad if the area wasn't surrounded by high ground. This can make it extremely hard to push into the surrounding area for Blue. There's pretty much only one spot for Blue to push, well, only one where you won't get instantly destroyed. This area is begging for another choke point. There is a space where one could have gone. Soldiers and demos usually jump up here to spam towards the enemy team. I think this could have been a good opening to give Blue more options when coordinating a push, especially because they don't have many other areas to do so. Another problem with this point is attributed to the entire map's design. When fighting over the third and fourth point, the map has a long walk from spawn all the way to the front lines. This on its own wouldn't be so bad, other maps do this, but this map falls short, and it's all because of this map's layout. This map is an absolute maze. Payload maps are designed to naturally push players toward the objective using a variety of tactics. Arrows, spawn direction, moving spawns up, blocking previous routes, having a clear and open way forward. I believe Aquarius fails in this regard. As I played this map, I kept noticing people getting confused. The map has arrows and point guides, and they are everywhere, although they don't seem to help too much. One thing this map needs to do is to move up spawn, or to make the way to the point smooth and less twisty. All these corridors just add unneeded confusion to the player, especially when traveling to last. And speaking of last, it's more so what I've come to expect out of TF2 payload maps. A proper stronghold for red to defend and blue to try and penetrate. This is the spot where you blow up the shark. Around this middle area, there's an entire underground area which gives blue more options, which I believe it utilizes decently. I wouldn't say either team here is too strong, it's honestly the most alright part of this map. All in all, this map is a visually different game and plays pretty terribly. One of the worst maps we've gotten this update. 1 out of 10. Next is... here it is, the first oil rig map. Thank you, Offshore. Thank you! Visually, this map isn't an eyesore, unlike the last map. It's more muted in style, and it keeps the characters more saturated than the rest of the map, which is a plus. Although I don't really get the feeling of TF2 from this. Nothing sticks out super bad aside from the helicopter above spawn and this modern lifeboat. The time period is the 60s and 70s, not modern time. Come on. I think the setting for this one is okay. Red and blue are fighting over an oil rig in the middle of a giant ocean. Although when the round is won, the oil derrick lights on fire for some reason. You think if they were fighting over it, they wouldn't want it damaged, but I digress. Gameplay wise, this map is not the worst, but also has a bit of questionable design here and there. Outside spawn is absolutely massive. This could have been condensed a bit, and there's an entire lower point inside the spawn room that doesn't really need to be here, along with this gigantic outside area around it. It could have been shrunk or even removed, and the map would more than likely play the same. The way to the point is initially clear, outlined by these doors, although once you step through it, it then funnels the player to several different routes around the point. King of the Hill maps should funnel players directly toward the point and not to all the area around it. This, along with the map's vertical nature, encourages players to abandon the team fight and 1v1 around the point. This choice in layout heavily accommodates some classes while neglecting others. Scout and Soldier are at home here. So much wide open space and verticality makes these classes particularly strong. The one that especially suffers on this map is the Engineer. His gun gets spammed out super easily pretty much anywhere he can build. Everywhere around the point is so open and has at least one long sightline directly where his gun could stand. Engie is not a fun time on this map. On initial look, this map looks like it'd be a good time, although on further inspect, the layout being as open and wide as it is does not make this map play particularly well. Other King of the Hill maps set the standard for small, tight maps that encourage players to fight over the midpoint. The push and pull between teams defines King of the Hill, not large deathmatch arenas where the point is kinda out of the way. 3 out of 10. Now on to... this map is a reskin of Laughter, which is already a reskin of Slaughter. We have a double reskin map here. I don't have a lot to say on gameplay as I think Laughter already plays decently well. A lot of my criticism is mostly on the visuals and theming. This map is set inside a carnival near a city on the beach. So, big red flag here. Why are the mercenaries fighting so close to a presumably inhabited city? I thought this war wasn't really in the public eye. But why think about such frivolous things such as logic and sticking to previous theming when we're in a theme park on the beach? Woo! Check it out. We have a hall or a small closet of mirrors, a minigame where you can get critical hits, interactable ball throwing, shoot throwing. I don't know how I'd describe this. All things to take your attention away from the point, you know, as all good King of the Hill maps do. This map could have done without all these distractions, and it would have been a lot better. We don't need to be constantly reminded of the gimmick of the map. This map is very in your face about its theme, and it gets annoying pretty quick. Good God, I'm going to jump off of a bridge if I have to listen to one more fucking minute of this carnival music. Ah! Onto the visuals of this map. This map is extremely ugly for a TF2 map. A map shouldn't be this in your face with bright visuals. TF2 is already a beautiful game with its own style it defined years ago. Maps should try and stick to that if they want to be officially added. This map also commits a visual sin, and that is all the red coloring on blue side. Different sides of a TF2 map are supposed to be colored appropriately. Red has a more warm color palette, while blue has a more cool color palette. And the center of the maps usually are neutral colored or colored based on what side you're closer to. But this map commits a sin by going, fuck it, red wood everywhere. It breaks the colored symmetry that most King of the Hill maps have. Blue is colored just barely enough to where it's not a huge issue, but it's still pretty jarring to see so much red on buildings right by blue spawn. Gameplay wise, as I said earlier, this map plays pretty much perfectly fine. The only issue I have with how this map plays is with the upstairs area. The conveyor belts up here feel a bit off and they don't really add much gameplay variety. You could have just added a balcony and it probably would have played the exact same. The conveyor belts here are kinda out of place, but other than that one nitpick, I think this map plays decently well. It's probably the best playing map we got this entire update. Although visually this map is a fucking mess. 4 out of 10. The next map is visually, this map is very drab. I can't name exactly why I'm getting set off, but I am a bit uncomfortable with how this map looks. It feels like it's trying too hard to look like something it's not. The helicopter on top of Blue's spawn feels out of place compared to the rest of the map. Along with the painted walls, it's just off. Gameplay wise, the layout makes some interesting choices. The first point reminds me of Mercenary Park 2nd. The way leading to it works perfectly fine. What doesn't work is the underground section. The top area has plenty of routes to the point that work perfectly fine. This just feels like it was added and not properly integrated well into the map design. There's an entrance underground right beside Blue's spawn, although it goes mostly unutilized. These stairs to it are so vertical they could be considered a ladder. Entering here is a bad idea due to how condensed this part is. A soldier or demo can prevent a push or exit here single-handedly. The other entrance underground is in this open area in front of where Blue spawns. The entrance doesn't really facilitate proper use of this route. In fact, it's kinda out of the way. You could have removed a majority of it and the map would more than likely play the exact same. Other than the underground area near the first point, I'd say the first point is designed pretty decently. Where the poor design of this map shows is on its second point. These hallways are a fucking maze. They can be absurdly confusing to anybody who isn't familiar with the map already. Attack defend maps need simple clear ways forward. It's how the map keeps the game rolling. These twisty hallways do nothing but work against the attacking team. I see the intention of them trying to give many different routes to the point, although this absolutely could have been simplified. Moving to the final area, it's a big open bowl with the point in the middle. It reminds me a lot of Gorge Last, but just kinda worse in most regards. Last does have a lot of cover, although it has the problem of having way too much area around the main point. It spreads players out way too much, so it's hard to get a good push going on Blue Team. Along with kind of hindering Blue Team, the openness also hurts Red Engineer. This map has the same problem as Boardwalk, where there's pretty much a sight line to every spot he could possibly build his sentry. The map itself has an interesting setting and a way of design that tries to mimic fun parts of unique maps, although it falls short of good TF2 map design by its questionable maze-like design, areas that are way too big, and redundant areas that could be removed. I rated it a 2 out of 10. Alright, next is... Here we are, another big gimmick summer map. Before we get into the gimmick, let's look at this map's visuals. Artistically, this map does not resemble a Team Fortress map. It feels like we're adrift in different timelines all at once. We have a medieval town with a lot of modern stuff hanging around, along with a giant spy tech type radio shoved into the middle of the castle. It feels very thrown together and it all clashes pretty hard with itself. It's a very gray map. They try to diversify its color palette by adding trees with orange leaves, but it just ends up adding too much unnecessary fluff. It's pretty over detailed in a lot of spots. Now on to the gameplay. This map allows you to build on top of the payload cart. At first glance, this map sounds like a horrible idea. Making an MVM tank that allows you to build multiple sentries on it could be very overpowered, but this map compensates and balances for that by making this map absolutely massive, with tons of high ground for Red. It was made to be like this to keep Engineer from being too oppressive on the cart, but it just ends up making Offense Engineer hard to play considering the openness of this map. Because I assume they were trying so hard to balance out Offense Engineer, what they ended up doing is buffing the absolute shit out of Sniper. Sniper is absurdly oppressive on this map. Everywhere has huge sightlines that expose almost the entire team to long-range damage. The only alleviation to this is to use the flank routes, but the problem with the flank routes is they encompass over half of the entire map and can be shut down very easily by the attacking team. There's not a whole lot of options for blue team other than save an Uber and then hope to God you can kill all the sentry guns coming up. I'd talk about each of the individual points like I did for Aquarius, but with this map they tend to play the exact same. The only point that doesn't play the exact same as the others is Last. Last has flanks that don't just lead into the entire enemy team, and it gives blue options. Blue can go upstairs and fire down on red, they can go to the sides to get closer spots to push. Red is also directly next to the point with cover so they don't get instantly annihilated. The card also has to be captured before it can be fully capped. This has that stronghold feel that most payload maps have, and I think it executes this pretty decently. In summary, this map tried a unique gimmick, although the gimmick worsens the experience by forcing players to deal with a ton of high ground and extremely long sightlines, making this map play pretty bad. 2 out of 10. Next is... finally, something that looks sorta normal. Well, at a glance at least. The more you look, the more that just seems off. This map has a lot more in common with other games than Team Fortress 2. Look at these roads for instance. Don't these remind you of Left 4 Dead? What about this? Remind you of anything? This map feels like a mishmash of maps from other games with a TF2 skin on it. The more I look, the worse it gets and the more questions I start asking. So, moving on. Gameplay wise, it's a mess. Both points are on low ground with flank routes surrounding them. Due to Red's distance from the first point, it can be hard for Red to defend it. There aren't very many spots an engineer can set up, he will more often than not get spammed out. Blue tends to take the first point very quickly. The second point on the other hand has a completely different issue, and it is very hard to take control of. It's a good walk to get there, the entire thing is surrounded with different routes and high ground. And that is where the problem is. The area does not naturally guide blue team directly to the point. It guides them to all the area surrounding it. This takes attention away from the objective and turns the map into frag central. This map should have moved the point or changed the routes around the point to funnel toward the capture zone, like other attack defend maps do. All in all, visually questionable and eerily similar to other games, but gameplay wise it is a complete mess. 2 out of 10. Oh great, now we have... oh boy, spoiler alert, this is the worst map this update. Visually, it's not as bad as Aquarius, although it does a ton of questionable design. First off, where the fuck are we? An oil rig? Oh, a water rig. Whatever that is. It's just a random platform out in the middle of nowhere. What's the purpose of this? Why are we fighting out in the middle of nowhere over nothing? What the fuck is going on here? Why are there furnaces on a rig with giant bellows coming out of them? What are they cooking? Is this a rig or a factory? Why are there windows here? Who's gonna fit in there? Why is there a wooden door up on the crane? Why does the crane have huge comical looking whistles on it? Why do the buildings have workstations with giant holes in the walls? Who's working here? What is this rig for? Anyway, moving on. This map is one of the worst King of the Hill maps I've ever played. This map is absurdly tiny, smaller than Junction tiny. When either team spawns, it points you a literal 180 degrees away from where you're supposed to go. King of the Hill maps should be pointing you where you're supposed to go. This map does not do that. It's a 180 degree turn out of spawn. Would it have been so hard to face us towards the door, or even slightly move spawn a bit? I could forgive this map for most of this if it played pretty well. So does it? No. No, it does not. The exit from spawn is so tiny, it usually gets spammed out by the winning team. Same thing goes for the long way around. These hallways are so goddamn tiny, they get spammed out by basically any explosion class. So if one team is doing better, you're basically just shit out of luck. They tried to balance this out by making the winning team have a longer way to the point, although this is negated by a good engineer. If one team is winning by a good amount, they more than likely have an engineer with a teleporter up. Speaking of engineer, engineers can place a sentry on these ramps and shoot people who can barely see it. Wow, I love this map's design. Onto the house where you spam from. This house has 3 entrances, 2 of which are normal and another exist around the back, although the only way to get back there is with jumper classes. This is really only usable as Scout, Soldier, or Demo, which would be okay, but for some reason they put fire out here where you can burn yourself. I may or may not have accidentally lit myself on fire once or twice, but hey, I see this as nothing but a net positive. I can set myself on fire and get out of this hell. There's an area beneath the point where you can surprise the enemy team. Want me to show you why almost nobody ever uses it? Yeah, you either get destroyed by rockets, air blasted off by a pyro, or, you just die sometimes. The crane all the way out here also has a walkable area, although it's only accessible by jumper classes and scout. There's a small health pack here. Demo can be annoying out here by spamming stickies onto the point. This map really favors explosion classes and scout. There's no real redeeming factors about this map. It's just the most literal definition of garbage in TF2. I don't think I've had one good match on here. 0 out of 10. Shit. Garbage map. Now onto something not near as bad. I've seen a ton of praise for this map. People say it's the best map we've gotten in a while. Do I agree? I don't think this map plays very well. Visually, it goes for a jungle aesthetic. Personally, not a big fan. I like the more dusty environments and the spy tech facilities especially, which this map attempts to go for. Sadly, I don't think it pulls it off as well as other maps. The areas on this map are very green in color for some reason.
This map is green enough. Needs more foliage.
This map ain't green enough for the 2 of us.
To an absurd degree in a lot of places. But I don't look at this and want to vomit at least. It's not Aquarius. This map also does give me a Portal vibe, specifically around Blue's initial spawn. Aperture ass looking building. Oh, also you can see the pit area near Brazil. Why did this map have to remind me of Brazil? Ugh. Have to dock a point for that. The scars will never heal. The visuals overall are kinda meh. Now onto the gameplay. Oh boy. The first point starts off very red-sided. The majority of routes funnel you toward this small area near the point, and let me tell you, this is Demo's sticky spam paradise. God, this sucks. The point attempts to have a flank. Note my word usage there. Attempts. This entire flank underneath the point should have just been reworked. Whenever you go underneath, red team can just look down at you, and then you die. That's not very fun. Red engineers also have the perfect setup spots in this point. I played engineer on red team a couple of times, and I basically just sat there twiddling my thumbs waiting for blue team to push, or the occasional spy to show up. Unless blue team stacks Ubers or gets a spy in there to wreak havoc on engineers, you probably aren't breaking in there. This point needed a little bit more time in the oven. The only real strategy here is just to keep throwing yourself at it until hopefully one time it works. If you can manage to break through the red line, you now have an even harder point to break into. Moving on to the second point, this point suffers from a different issue than the first. The area heading toward the second point is excessively large. This size, along with the amount of flanks, spreads blue team out. It's almost maze-like in a lot of areas. It's just confusing and unfun. If you have to put giant holographic arrows in the middle of the floor, I think that's telling of a bigger issue. Speaking of the holographic arrows, you can also build a sentry behind these, and the arrow mostly hides it, so be sure to exploit that. Red Engineer has a lot of good sentry spots. It's not super hard to keep a building up here due to how spread out blue is. If the team can coordinate into one section, then blue usually is able to break through, although good luck getting players to coordinate in a casual match. This whole section before the point should have been made smaller and simplified. Less paths would have made the area better to fight in. On to the third point. Last has the issue where blue team really doesn't have a lot of options to push. There's only really one good angle to push from, right behind this glass wall. This area is good for a blue engineer to set up and for attackers to hold. Every other area is wide open, which is pretty much instant death for anybody on blue. The upstairs area is begging for another way around. It's kinda out of the way for anybody to go, with no real advantage beyond putting a teleporter up here. This entire area could have done with a rework. This map just makes decisions that work against team coordination. Not the worst map I've ever played, but also not a map I'd want to play much anymore. 2 out of 10. Oh boy, now we have. This city is one of the most bizarre places that the mercenaries would fight over. It's almost like it's part of the backrooms. Random drops that make 0 sense, stairs everywhere, garages that exit in the most random spots imaginable, buildings whose interiors that have 0 logic to them. This really does not feel like a place people would live in. There's also leaves fucking everywhere, yet 0 trees. Why are there so many leaves? This map is like Demolition, a control point surrounded by the most odd design imaginable. Where the fuck do these stairs go? Ricco. A fuse box? This city is also fucking filthy. What are red and blue fighting over here? I see no spy tech type things, no value in this street. Literally fighting over a giant manhole surrounded by sewage and trash. I have no nice things to say about the visuals. It's just another map that was designed to be visually appealing for workshop clicks. So now, let's look at the gameplay. And it plays how you think it would. Awfully. I wouldn't call it as bad as Demolition, but I would by no means say this map plays well at all. It's confusing to navigate. The walk from spawn shouldn't have been this twisty. The map turns you many different directions and never directly towards the point. You know, the area you want to be heading toward on a King of the Hill map. All good King of the Hill maps funnel you directly to the main point. What is it with maps this update being so maze-like and confusing to navigate? Just something most of these suffer from, almost as if they weren't built to play well. Just saying. Anyway, moving on to the point. The area around it is quite condensed. Because of this, power classes reign supreme. Demo, Soldier, and Heavy are incredibly strong here. Because the areas leading to the capture zone are so thin, they pretty much funnel you into the line of fire, which can make it pretty hard to capture the point if the other team owns it. The other areas around the map are so flanky it's not even funny. Speaking of, this map has an entire underside to it as well. The giant sewer system. This area is just a big flank route. It connects from red spawn all the way to blue spawn. Majority of it doesn't even provide a good gameplay advantage. It was added to make flanking super easy. Scout has a hell of a time down here. He's pretty much the only one that can take good advantage of the sewer. Oh, and it makes this unique footstep sound when you travel through it. Disgusting. Along with rats that cause constant errors. Disgusting. People usually stick closer to the point because why risk running into a scout or an explosion class underground when you can stick near your team and shut down mid. This map doesn't do anything good, it's just a dud all around. Oh, but wait, we can't forget Spamton's on this map. Woo! Yay! This is the only thing anybody knows this map for. The references. It's literally all it's good for. 1 out of 10. Terrible. Now we have the final map in this review. Another underwater facility that actually doesn't look like utter garbage. This feels pretty good. It actually feels like a proper facility that looks like it's used. Oh, why did they make the area connecting red and blue puke green? Ugh. This map visually looked pretty decent until I saw this. The map tries to be an underwater facility, and I think it could have nailed it if it stuck with that theme. This cave section in the middle, I can confidently say I am not a fan of. Well, other than the visuals, let's look at the gameplay. This is a pretty bad CTF map. Good CTF maps are pretty small and condensed, or they lead you pretty clearly to the intelligence. Looking at these maps, you can see this. Main fighting area, way to the enemy intel. And you can see that the best CTF maps do this very clearly with simple routes to the intel. Now let's look at an overhead of pressure. My God, this is a fucking maze. This map could have done with a ton of simplifying. Maybe made these areas a lot smaller or gotten rid of them. Which leads me to another thing. The spawns on this map should have been pointed a different direction. As they are, and with the direction you spawn in, it leads you towards your own intel room, and not towards the enemies. This is just further confusion on a map that's almost nothing but corridors that lead to more corridors. The water sections are confusing as well. They are way too big. They could have done with some simplifying. There's a reason nobody ever uses them. The map isn't the worst thing I've ever played, although it is indeed one of the worst CTF maps we've ever gotten. 2 out of 10. And here we are. That's all the content. Thank God. This update was kind of a drag to get through. Most people are severely disappointed in what Valve brought to the table this year. You can tell by how many people still play these maps. Just consistently pretty terrible all around. Valve made it seem like this update was going to be bigger and better than it was. They released it late into the summer, which got people excited. We thought they were going to put something pretty grand out, but in the end it was just another shitty holiday-sized update. We did get one good change this update, which was a change to the end of round vote timer. I wanted to mention that because that was very far out of left field. Valve doesn't really seem to like touching the matchmaking system, and I'm kind of surprised they were willing to make a change. I have more to say on that later. I've never made a scripted video like this, so this was me testing the waters with that. Scope creep is a bitch. I wanted this out earlier, but I just kept having more and more and more to say on a lot of things. The script just kept getting longer, but I finally got it done. Finally. So, lesson learned, I guess. I do want to thank Dogma for that little stick figure gambling animation. Dude's fucking epic. Go check him out, link below. Also, check out friend of the channel, Chris Creed Killers. He helped to give more insight into some of these maps, and I really do appreciate that. Well, I've said everything I wanted to. Hope you enjoyed. Like and subscribe if you want. I'm NonMoth, and I will see you for the upcoming NVM update. Goodbye.